The wind howled through the junkyard, blowing dust across broken engines, rusted ship parts, and old metal towers. This place was called Gravel Pit 9, and no one came here unless they had nothing left. Jax Rayner lived in the junkyard. A poor, human mechanic, he worked alone, fixing scrap for a few credits. He had no family, no friends, and only a small broken-down workshop with leaky pipes and flickering lights. His hands were always black with grease, and his food came from old ration packs. One morning, Jax was digging through the far corner of the junkyard, looking for usable wiring. His tools buzzed as he scanned the ground, but suddenly, the scanner beeped, a signal from something big and metallic. "What's this?" Jax muttered. He pushed metal aside, moved heavy scrap, and then saw it. A huge, dented metal crate covered in dust and alien markings. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the sides. It looked old, maybe centuries. The top of the crate had a biolock, but it was damaged. Jax carefully connected his scanner and hacked the lock. With a loud hiss, the crate opened. Inside, lying still in chains, was a creature. It looked like a giant lizard with torn wings. Its scales were dull gray, its horns cracked. One of its eyes was shut with a scar. It breathed slowly. Its body was thin and dirty, like it had been sleeping for ages. Jack stepped back, shocked. A dragon. Not just any dragon. This creature was ugly, broken, and full of anger. Suddenly, its one working eye snapped open. It glowed faintly red. The creature growled. Jax reached for his taser, but the dragon didn't move. It looked weak. Then he noticed something. A small tag on the crate. To Jax Rayner, property of your late uncle, signed, Darren Rayner. What? The Uncle Darren? Jax whispered. He hadn't seen his uncle in 10 years. His uncle had vanished during a trade mission, declared dead, and now Jax had inherited this thing? He stared at the dragon. It stared back. He could have closed the crate and forgotten it, sold the parts, walked away. But then, Jax remembered something, his uncle's last message, a strange letter found months ago. "If you ever find her, don't be afraid. She's more than she looks. She saved my life once. She'll save yours too." Jax sighed and rubbed his face. "You better not eat me in my sleep." He unchained the creature slowly. It snarled, but didn't attack. Instead, it limped out of the crate and collapsed on the dusty floor. Jax brought water and an old thermal blanket. The creature ignored him. It just stared into the sky. "Fine," Jax muttered. "Stay grumpy." He named her Grilla, a joke name, ugly, angry, like an old engine that never worked right. Grilla never growled at the name. She didn't care. Days passed. Jax built a shelter next to his shop. Grilla barely moved. She ate little, just scraps of meat. Her wings were torn and one leg seemed injured. People came by the junkyard, laughed, and called Jax a fool. "You keeping a dragon? That thing looks dead. She'll cook you one day, mechanic," but Jax ignored them. He didn't know why. But something inside him said not to give up on her. One night, during a storm, a strange thing happened. Jax was asleep in his workshop when he heard metal crash outside. He grabbed his old rifle and ran out. Raiders. 2 men, with plasma pistols, were searching the yard, stealing fuel cells. One of them pointed a weapon at Jax. "You're outnumbered, junk boy. Hand it over." Jax raised his rifle, but it was old and jammed. Suddenly there was a roar. Grilla flew from the shadows like a missile. Her broken wings barely worked, but her teeth and claws did. She tackled one raider, slamming him into a pile of scrap. The second raider fired, but Grilla knocked the gun aside and growled with such power that both men fled, screaming. She limped back and collapsed again, panting hard. Jax stood frozen. "You saved me," he whispered. Grilla didn't answer, but for the first time her growl didn't sound angry. It sounded tired and sad. Jax sat beside her. "You're not just a beast. You're something else, aren't you?" He looked at the broken collar around her neck. It had strange alien tech inside. He made a note to study it later. The rain stopped, In the quiet junkyard under the stars, the poor mechanic and the ugly dragon sat together. Neither knew it yet, but the galaxy would remember this night, because this was the beginning of something incredible. The morning after the attack, the junkyard was quiet, but not calm. Jack swept up broken metal and thrown tools. His hands shook. His mind still saw the image of Grilla leaping through the storm, her growl like thunder, her eyes glowing, red in the dark. She had looked like a monster and a protector. She didn't eat anything that day. Just sat by the scrap wall, her head resting on her claws. "You shouldn't be able to move like that," Jax muttered, placing a bowl of meat near her. "You're supposed to be dying." She growled lightly, not a threat, more like a warning. "Stop asking stupid questions." Jack smiled. Grump. Grilla was still ugly. Scars, cracked horns, broken scales. But Jax had stopped caring about that. She wasn't dead. She wasn't gone. She had fought. "Why did you save me?" he whispered, while working on a busted coolant coil. Grilla didn't reply, but her eye, the one that still worked, stared at him. It wasn't just animal instinct. There was thought behind it. Memory. Pain. That night, while Jax worked under a broken hover truck, a strange noise came from the shelter where Grilla stayed. Soft hum, then a flickering light. Jax dropped his tools and ran over. Grilla had bitten into her own collar. Her teeth had cracked part of the alien metal, revealing a small device inside. It blinked faint blue, some kind of memory chip or transmitter, a piece of her past. Jax carefully pulled it out. "What are you hiding?" he whispered, connecting the chip to his old data reader. The screen crackled, then showed a series of holograms. War. Massive skies filled with burning ships, planets torn apart, screams, explosions, dragons, hundreds of them, chained and forced into battle. Their scales shined like gold and silver. They rained fire on armies, their roars shaking the stars. Among them, one stood out. A smaller dragon, chained tighter than the rest, her wings torn, her scales dull, her eyes full of rage. It was Grilla. But that wasn't her name. Designation, Serenth, 13. Class, Celestial Dragon. Status, Rebellious. Orders, Isolate. Mute. Control. Jax's heart dropped. "You were one of them. A weapon." The next clip showed her being locked into a crate. A voice, cold and robotic, said, "Unit 13 too dangerous. Transfer to unmarked crate. Shipped to remote location. Assigned to asset. Darren Rayner." Jack stared at the screen, then at the broken dragon sleeping under the tarp. His uncle hadn't just hidden her. He rescued her. And now, she was his. The next day, Jax did something crazy. He started repairing her. He wasn't a biologist, but he was a mechanic. To him, everything was made of systems, broken parts needing balance. He made a brace for her bad leg from scrap and sealed cracks in her wings with heat flex panels from old solar sails. Grilla snarled the first time he touched her wing. Her breath almost melted his face. But when he didn't run, she let him do it. Every evening, Jack sat by her side, talking to her like a friend. "Do you miss flying?" he asked once. She turned her head toward the stars, didn't answer, but her tail tapped the ground softly. Jax knew the answer was yes. Weeks passed. Grilla didn't just survive, she grew stronger. Her steps got firmer, her roars louder. Still, she refused to fly. Still, she growled at strangers. But she started doing strange things. She would stand guard at night, watching the road. She knocked over a stack of scrap once on purpose, because a hidden snakebot had crept too close to Jax's sleeping area. She didn't let Jax pet her, but she let him sit close. And one night, when it got too cold, she pulled her wings slightly, over his legs. Then came the traitor. A fat alien named Cordo landed his shuttle near the yard. He sniffed the air and said, "I smell power." Jax lied. "Just old fuel." But Cordo saw Grilla. "She's not what she looks like," he said, stepping closer. "That's not a junk beast, that's a war dragon, a celestial class. I'll give you 200,000 credits. Right now." Jax laughed. She's not for sale. 500,000, Cordo hissed. Think, human. You're poor. You fix junk for scraps. Sell her and live like a king. Jax didn't answer. He looked at Grilla. She stared back at him, silent, waiting. She's not a thing, Jax said softly. She's family. That night, Grilla did something she had never done before. She spoke. Her voice was broken, deep, and slow, but Jax heard it clearly. You, not like the others. Jax froze. His heart pounded. You can talk? She gave a small nod. Not before. Not allowed. Jax sat beside her, stunned. Why now? Grilla looked up at the stars again. Because I trust you. That night, under a sky filled with broken stars, the poor human mechanic and the grumpy dragon sat together, no longer strangers, and far above the planet, in a hidden ship, someone else was watching. Sirinth 13 is awake, said a voice. Send word to the Empress, the last dragon is no longer sleeping. The desert wind was quiet that night. Too quiet. Jax sat by the fire with his wrench in one hand and the dragon's memory chip in the other. The screen from the chip still showed faint images, war-torn skies, fire raining down, and Sirinth 13, now, called Grilla, chained like a beast. The fire cracked, but Jax didn't move. His mind was spinning. How could a creature so fierce once be so broken? And how had his uncle, a simple trader, ended up with a living war dragon? Grilla was silent, as always. But her eyes were open, watching him. And for the first time since she had spoken those few words, she looked vulnerable. The next morning, Jax cleaned out the back of his storage shed. He needed more space. Something told him what he found in that chip was only the beginning. He dug through old crates, searching for anything left by his uncle. Anything that might explain why Sirinth had been sent to him. And then, hidden behind a broken reactor coil, he found it. A black case with his name etched on the side. He opened it carefully. Inside were old tapes, a worn journal, and a keycard labeled Access, Vault 44. Use only if she wakes. Jax's fingers tightened around the card. She's awake now, he whispered. That evening, Jax approached Grilla as the sun dipped low, painting the scrap hills gold. She stood tall, her wings folded tight, her scars glowing faintly in the light. I found something, he said, holding up the journal. Her eye flicked toward the book, then back at him. Did my uncle hurt you? Grilla's breath steamed through her nostrils. No, she said, her voice like distant thunder. He freed me. Jax sat down beside her. The journal was full of entries, written in rough handwriting. His uncle had logged everything. I found her in a broken transport crate. She was drugged, weak, but she opened her eyes when I said her name. Sirinth, the last celestial dragon. She looked into my soul. Another entry. She's more than metal, more than teeth. There's a mind inside, a memory. They broke her body, but not her will. Jax read for hours. Grilla didn't move. But she listened. They used her in the Great Fire Wars. She destroyed ships with a roar, burned enemy fleets in seconds. But when she refused to attack a hospital ship full of children, they called her defective. They chained her, tried to erase her mind. Jax closed the journal. His hands trembled. You refuse to kill children? He whispered. Grilla nodded slowly. I remember the screams. I would not burn them. For the first time, Jax didn't see a monster. He saw a protector, brutalized by war, buried in shame. Later that night, Jax used the keycard. He had no idea what Vault 44 was, but the card connected to his junkyard's old control terminal. To his surprise, it unlocked a hidden underground vault, a storage unit under the junkyard sealed off since his uncle's death. Jax climbed down into darkness, flashlight in hand. The vault was cold, filled with dust and silence. And inside, rows of crates all marked with celestial tech warning signs, weapons, armor, flight systems, and at the back, a huge metal rack stood tall, covered in dark cloth. Jax pulled the cloth back and gasped. Wings. Not natural wings. Mechanical, made for a dragon. He checked the notes. His uncle had built a replacement system for Sirinth's broken wing. It was never finished. Jax stared at it, heart racing. Uncle, you were preparing her for something. He took the schematics and returned above. Grilla was waiting, her tail twitching. Jax laid the parts down in front of her. I think he wanted you to fly again, he said. Her eye softened. I forgot the sky. Jax smiled. Then let's remind you. The next few days were spent in silence and focus. Jax worked all day, welding and fitting the new wing system. Grilla let him touch her now, trusted him to adjust the scars, the pressure points. Sometimes she winced, sometimes she growled, but she never stopped him. And slowly the new wing came to life. Dark silver panels shaped like bone. Thin, solar-threaded membranes designed to catch starlight. It wasn't perfect, but it was strong. Grilla flexed it once, twice. Then she looked at the sky. Jax whispered, "Try." With one mighty leap, Grilla launched into the air. Her old wing beat weakly, the new one sparked, but it worked. She rose. Not high, not far, but she flew. Jax laughed with tears in his eyes. You did it. Grilla landed with a heavy thud, breathing hard. Not perfect, she growled. But free, Jax answered. They both looked up, and neither noticed the orb drone hiding, on the cliffside recording everything. A signal pulsed silently across the stars. Target located, Celestial Unit Sirinth 13 confirmed, informed the Empress. Jax thought they were alone. He didn't know that deep in the stars, a forgotten empire had just awoken, and it was coming for its lost dragon. The wind tasted different. That morning, Jax stood on the edge of the junkyard watching clouds swirl in strange patterns above the desert. His eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. Behind him, Grilla, now stronger and with her new wing, practiced small glides between the scrap towers. She moved with more confidence, but her head would still jerk at sudden noises. The scars of war had not left her soul. Jax walked toward her with a cold feeling in his chest. You feel that? He asked. Grilla paused, sniffed the air, then growled. Not natural, she said softly. Engines, hiding in wind. They both looked at the sky, and then they saw it. 3 black dots in the distance, too small for traders, moving too fast for civilians. Hunter-class ships. Later that night, Jax tried to act normal. He worked in his shop, welding an old hoverbike frame, but his hands kept shaking. His eyes kept checking the scanner. They were being watched. He could feel it. He looked at the scanner again. It showed static, but brief pulses flickered across the corner. Someone was bouncing signals off the junkyard. Probes. He turned to Grilla. They found you. She didn't flinch. She just nodded, slow and grim. Jax clenched his jaw. What do they want? Revenge? No, she said. They want control. Again. That night they talked like never before. Grilla sat under the stars, her long tail curling over rusted metal, her voice low. They called us weapons, but we were never made for war. We were born free, skyriders, dream holders. Then they put chains around our minds, Jax whispered. And now they're coming to chain you again. She looked at him, and for the first time her voice trembled. I cannot be captured, not again. He stood up, heart racing. Then we don't let them. Grilla growled low. You cannot fight warships. I can fight with my brain. By morning, Jax had a plan. He spent hours gathering junk. Old drone shells, scrap engines, fuel barrels. He built decoys, fake fire signals, and false heat trails. The junkyard would look like a trap, but also a puzzle. Buy time, Jax muttered. Just need to buy time. Grilla joined him. She dragged heavy fuel drums, spread broken power cells like breadcrumbs. She knew this was her fight, but Jax had already made his choice. He wouldn't run. That night, they sat by the fire. If I fall, Grilla said, you must run. Jax shook his head. If you fall, then they'll have to take me down too. She looked at him, quiet. You are stubborn, she said. He smiled. Mechanics usually are. The sky exploded the next day. 3 black hunter ships broke through the clouds, sharp like knives, fast like lightning. Their engines screamed as they descended. They circled above the junkyard, scanning. Jack stood on the roof of his shack, waving. Voice echoed from a loudspeaker. This is Imperial Unit Theta 9. You are harboring a Class 13 war beast. Surrender it now, Jax shouted back. She's not yours. You are human. Weak. You cannot stop us. Then the attack began. Lasers hit the decoys first. Explosions shot up, but nothing vital. Fake energy trails led them toward heat traps Jax had built. For a moment, the sky was full of smoke and confusion. But only for a moment. They found the real Grilla quickly. She rose from behind a wall of broken shuttles, her wings outstretched. Her new wing glowed with power, her eyes burned. She roared. The first hunter ship dove at her. She leapt. Metal met fire. Grilla clawed into the hull, ripping through steel. The ship spun and exploded in midair. But the second and third ships changed. Tactics. They didn't fire at her. They aimed for Jax. He was still on the roof, staring in horror. One ship locked on. No, Grilla screamed. Not a growl, but a word. She flew faster than Jax had ever seen. She smashed into the ship's wing just as it fired. The blast missed Jax by inches, but Grilla fell with the impact. She crashed into the junkyard, tearing through, metal and flame. Dust rose high. Jax ran through the wreckage. Grilla! No answer. He found her under a pile of scrap, her side bleeding, one wing limp. No, 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 stay with me. Her eye blinked once. Still alive. Above, the last hunter ship hovered. But something was wrong. They weren't attacking. They were watching. Then a voice spoke through the sky. We were told she was broken. We were wrong. Send message. To the Empress, the Celestial is active and bonded. Bonded? Jax looked down at Grilla. What did they mean? Grilla coughed, a weak laugh. You stayed. You saw me, not as a beast. That bound us. My soul chose yours. Jax was shaking. What does that mean? It means, she whispered, you're part of me now. The hunter ship vanished into the clouds, not defeated, but warned. They had seen something they didn't expect. A dragon and a human as one. Above the planet, in a golden palace floating in space, the Empress watched the report. Her claws curled around her throne. The bond has formed, she whispered. Prepare the throne ship. We will reclaim the dragon and her chosen human. The fire inside the junkyard had died down. Ash floated in the air like snow. Broken scrap and melted metal covered the yard. One of the hunter ships was still burning in a corner, its wing bent like a giant claw. Jax sat beside Grilla, her body half buried in shattered parts. Her breath was slow, heavy. Her eyes were closed. He had wrapped her wounds as best he could, used every med pack he had. But it wasn't enough. You saved me again, he whispered. She didn't respond. Her tail didn't move. Her chest barely rose. Jax felt something sharp in his chest. Fear. Not for himself, but for her. Then the ground trembled, not an explosion. A pulse, like a heartbeat under the soil. Suddenly, Grilla's body glowed. Faint at first, then brighter. Her old cracked scales began to crack further, but this time, something new shimmered underneath. Jax stepped back, confused and afraid. Grilla. Her body lit up like silver fire, and then she began to change. It didn't happen fast like in stories. It was slow, painful, real. Her old skin split apart like shedding armor. Her horns straightened. Her tail grew longer and sleeker. The broken wing, the one Jax had repaired, crumbled to ash and reformed in gold light, combining his tech with glowing bone. The dull gray dragon was gone. What rose from the metal was Sarenth, her real form. Her scales shone like starlight, silver and blue mixed together. Her eyes were no longer red, but bright like twin moons. Jax stood frozen. She looked beautiful. Not soft, not fragile, but powerful. Regal. She wasn't a beast. She was royalty. Grilla, no, Sarenth, opened her eyes and looked at him. "You see me now," she said, her voice clear, no longer broken. Jax couldn't speak. He had never seen anything like her. Not in any book. Not in any star record. She walked slowly toward him. "I hid my true self," she explained. "The old skin, it was a prison. A shell the Empire forced on me. It kept me small, kept me weak." Jax blinked. "Then why now?" Sarenth stopped in front of him. "Because you gave me the one thing they never did." "What?" She leaned, her head down. Choice. Later, they sat near the old fire pit. Jax was still shaken, but he had questions. "You said we're bonded?" Sarenth nodded. "It happened when you chose to stay, when you fought for me without fear." "But what does that mean?" "It means our lives are tied now, not just in battle, in soul." Jax laughed nervously. "Well, that's big." Sarenth gave a small smile. "You can feel it too, can't you?" Jax paused. Yes, he could. Since the bond, he had felt something strange. A tug in his chest when she was hurt. A warmth in his mind when she spoke. Her thoughts didn't speak words in his head, but he felt them. He looked up at her. "So now what?" Before Sarenth could answer, a strange beep came from the workbench. Jax ran over. The long-range scanner, silent for weeks, had picked up a signal. "Throne ship inbound, ETA, 7 days. Primary target, Sarenth, 13. Secondary target, human bond, Jax's." Face turned pale. He turned to Sarenth. "They're sending the Empress herself." Sarenth's wings folded. "She will not come to talk." Jax paced. 7 days. That's not enough time to run." "No," Sarenth said. "But it's enough time to prepare." "For war?" "For something bigger." Jax frowned. "What's bigger than war?" Sarenth looked at the stars. Truth. The next morning, Sarenth flew higher than she ever had. For the first time in decades, she spread her wings without chains, without fear. Her body shimmered in the sun, casting reflections over the desert. Creatures came out of the caves to watch. Drones passed overhead, recording her image. Jax watched from below, his heart pounding. She wasn't hiding anymore, and word began to spread across the outer colonies. On screens, in whispers. The last celestial dragon has returned, but this time she flies beside a human. In a distant alien temple, a group of monks watched the broadcast. One whispered, "The old stories are true." In a bar on a mining moon, a rebel fighter slammed her fist down. "That dragon fought for us, once. Maybe she will again." On Earth, a child looked up at the stars and smiled. "The dragons are real, Papa." But far away in the sky-black throne ship, the Empress sat upon her crystal chair. She watched Sarenth's rebirth on a glowing screen. Her eyes narrowed. She was supposed to break. Instead, she evolved. A servant bowed. "Shall we change the plan, my Empress?" The Empress stood. "No. Let the human believe in hope. Let the galaxy watch. When I take them both, the stars will remember who truly rules." The heat in the junkyard had changed. It wasn't just the weather, it was the air itself. Tense, electric, like the sky was holding its breath. As the throne ship drew closer each day, the people around Jax's world began to stir. Some prepared to hide, some prepared to fight, and a few came to stand with him. By the third day, strangers arrived at Jax's gate. First came an old pilot with a mechanical arm. He brought crates of scrap missiles and old shielding tech. I flew under her flames once, he said, pointing to Sirinth as she slept. She didn't burn us. She spared my crew. I owe her my life. Then came a family of desert traders. They offered fuel and food. Our son saw her fly. He said she looked like hope. More came. Rebels, runaways, scrappers, alien children with wide eyes. They camped in the junkyard, fixing old gear, setting up defenses. It became more than a pile of broken parts. It became a fortress. Jax looked around and realized they weren't just protecting Sirinth. They were protecting what she represented: freedom, forgiveness, a second chance. Sirinth watched the humans quietly. She didn't speak much, but her eyes told Jax everything. She was remembering. Not just pain, not just war, but dignity. The kind her chains had stolen long ago. "You were always a queen," Jax said one night as they sat by the fire. "You just forgot." She looked at him. "No, I didn't forget. I gave up. But you're still here." She lowered her head beside his. "Because you reminded me who I was." On the fifth night, Jack stood on the tower and watched the stars. Then he saw it, a long, dark shadow blocking out the moons. The throne ship had arrived. It didn't land. It didn't send a signal. It simply floated above the planet like a giant. Sword silent and watching, the people in the junkyard grew quiet. The fires were dimmed. Even Sirinth didn't speak. Then came the message, broadcast across every screen, every speaker. "I am Empress Gerald of the Inner Rings. I come not for war, but for what is mine." Jax swallowed hard. The Empress's voice was cold, regal, and sharp like glass. "The celestial dragon belongs to the Empire. She was created to serve. She will return willingly, or I will take her. And the human, he will kneel, or be crushed beside her." Sirinth stood, wings out, her eyes like fire. "I will never bow to her again." Jax stepped beside her. "Then neither will I." Soft wind passed between them. She looked down at him. "You understand what this means?" He nodded. "It means we fight not just for you, but for everyone who ever thought they were nothing." The next day, a door opened on the belly of the throne ship. From it, a smaller ship descended, smooth, black, and shaped like a spear. It landed in the junkyard without noise. Out stepped the Empress, tall, pale, dressed in living silk that moved like shadows. Her eyes were dark, unreadable. Behind her walked 10 royal guards, silent and glowing with power. The entire junkyard watched in fear. Jack stepped forward, alone. The Empress tilted her head. "You are smaller than I imagined." "And you talk more than I expected," Jax replied, her lips curled. Brave words, useless, but brave. She turned her gaze to Sirinth, who stood tall behind him. "You've grown soft," the Empress said to her. "You used to shake galaxies with your flame," Sirinth replied. "You used to be feared. Now, you just hide behind power." Gasps came from the crowd. The Empress's eyes darkened. "You think this bond makes you untouchable? That human blood can protect you?" She stepped closer. "Break the bond, Sirinth. Return to me, or I will destroy the human and take what remains of you." Sirinth stepped between the Empress and Jax, her wings spread wide. "He is mine now." The Empress smiled. "So be it." She raised her hand, and the ground shook. All around the junkyard, machines rose, hidden agents long planted beneath the soil. War droids shaped like spiders and snakes burst from underground. The guards drew weapons powered by stars. The final battle had begun. Jax ran toward the control station. Shields up. EMPs now. Sirinth shot into the sky like lightning. Her fire tore through the first line of droids. She spun, dived, and struck with a fury Jax had never seen. But her fire was silver, not red. Pure, controlled, royal. The people fought with her. Blasters, traps, bombs. They weren't warriors, but they had something stronger. Belief. And at the heart of it all, Jack stood with one goal: protect Sarenth's soul. Because he knew, if she gave in to rage, if she let hate win, she would be no better than the monster the Empress had tried to create. Sarenth's flame grew brighter as the Empress joined the fight, her eyes glowing, her hands summoning energy older than time. The sky split, the ground cracked, and in the middle stood a dragon queen reborn, and the human she had chosen, not as her master but as her equal. The sky burned gold. The battle in the junkyard had turned the desert into a storm of light, dust and fire. The sun had vanished behind thick clouds of smoke, and the ground trembled under the weight of machines and dragon fire. Sarenth soared. Above it all, wings outstretched, a silver star blazing through the chaos. Every move she made carved hope into the sky. Her flame no longer destroyed. It protected. And below her, Jack's Raynor fought like a man who had nothing to lose and everything to protect. The Empress stood on a broken hill of metal, her silk robes now tattered, her glowing crown cracked, but she still smiled. "You think this ends here?" she shouted into the storm. "You think one human can change what I built over 1,000 years?" Jack stood on a battered control tower, gripping an old plasma rifle. He was bleeding, exhausted, but his voice was steady. "No," he said. "But a dragon and a human together? Yeah, that just might." The Empress snarled, raising her hands. Sarenth dove. The collision shook the sky. Silver flame met ancient power. Wind howled like a scream through the canyons as the last celestial dragon slammed into the Empress with all her strength. The explosion lit up the sky, white and gold, but the Empress didn't fall. She rose from the dust, her eyes wild, her voice sharp. "You are a slave to your bond. He weakens you." But Sarenth stood firm, her body glowing like molten steel. "No. He freed me." At that moment, something strange happened. The bond between Jax and Sarenth, silent and invisible until now, ignited. Jax gasped, grabbing his chest. Sarenth felt it too. She turned toward him mid-flight, her eyes locking with his. Thoughts moved. Feelings flowed. He saw her memories, her birth in a sea of stars, her first flight, her first chains. She saw his childhood, greasy tools, cold nights, lonely meals, in a broken home. No words passed between them. But the message was clear. We are not alone anymore. Jack stepped forward. The Empress tried to stop him with a blast of pure energy, but it fizzled out before it touched him. Sarenth's aura wrapped around him like armor. Her flame became his shield. The Empress staggered. "What is this?" Jax's voice was calm. "This is what you can't control." He raised a device in his hand, the same chip that had once held Sarenth's memories. But now it carried a message, broadcast to every star system the Empress ruled. To all colonies, and this is the truth. The celestial dragons were never weapons. They were enslaved, abused, lied about. The last of them stands with us now. And we stand with her. Across the galaxy, screens lit up. On ships, in bunkers, in palace halls. The Empress's crimes were no longer hidden. The royal guards stopped fighting. The war machines shut down. The drones dropped their weapons. Sarenth rose above the battlefield, her voice strong and clear. "I am Sarenth. I am. Not your beast, I am not your fire, I am your equal." The junkyard went silent. Then, from the edges of the scrap hills, cheering, the Empress fell to her knees, her power broken. She screamed, but no one listened anymore. A transport ship descended quietly. Rebels, survivors, peacekeepers. They took her without a fight. Later that night, the stars returned. Jack sat beside the fire, bandaged and bruised, watching the quiet sky. People around him were rebuilding, laughing, singing, but his eyes searched for one shape. Then, wings. Sarenth landed softly beside him. Her body shimmered in the moonlight, no longer a shadow of war, but a creature of beauty and strength. "You Okay? He asked. She tilted her head. You still call me Grilla in your sleep. Jax laughed, then looked serious. What happens now? Sirinth lowered her head. Now, we write a new story. Weeks passed. The junkyard became a haven, a symbol. Mechanics, orphans, ex-soldiers, even scholars came to build a new town, a place where old machines were reborn, and so were broken. Lives, and above it all flew Sirinth, queen of the sky, no chains, no orders, only choice. One day, as the sun set, Jack stood beside her again. You know, he said, I never asked why my uncle trusted me with you. Sirinth looked toward the fading light. Because he saw something in you I didn't, at first. What's that? She smiled with her eyes. Someone who never quits. Someone who fixes broken things, even if that broken thing is a dragon. Jax laughed. Guess we fixed each other. She nodded. Yes, and the sky will never forget.